The ongoing legal struggle between 23XI Racing, Row Motorsports, and Nascar has become one of the most significant clashes in the sport's contemporary history. What began as a daring antitrust case in October 2024 is now poised to question the fundamental foundation of NASCAR's charter system, and potentially its influence over how revenue and power are allocated in the Cup Series. It all began when 23XI and Front Row declined to sign NASCAR's final charter renewal proposal. The agreement, issued to teams in September with a 6-hour deadline, promised a significant increase in cash from NASCAR's big $1.10 billion per year TV deal, but failed to address a crucial team demand: permanent charters. Instead, NASCAR allegedly threatened to completely abolish the system if teams did not comply. That ultimatum spurred the two holdout teams to sue the league and CEO Jim France, accusing them of monopolistic behavior aimed at benefiting themselves while limiting teams' financial security and power. Since then, the case has grown in complexity and effect. NASCAR has filed counterclaims alleging a conspiracy among teams to collect more money from the league, while 23XI and Front Row have requested financial information from outside leagues such as F1 and the NFL to demonstrate damages. With Judge Kenneth Bell permitting NASCAR to revise its counterclaim and questioning whether more teams should be included, the litigation has reached a tipping point. The ramifications are huge. If additional chartered teams are required to participate in the case, it could lead to internal schisms throughout the garage, an unprecedented examination of NASCAR's corporate model. As the December trial date approaches and important motions are heard in several courts, the next chapter of this legal battle may change how NASCAR operates and who truly wields power in the sport's future. The legal dispute between 23XI Racing, Row Motorsports, and NASCAR is entering a vital new phase, and it could get much bigger. With Judge Kenneth Bell's newest order, NASCAR will be able to alter its counterclaim in the continuing antitrust dispute. But more critically, the court is now considering a critical question: should more chartered teams be added to this case? The Western District of North Carolina has urged both parties, NASCAR and the plaintiff teams, to determine if additional teams not currently involved in the dispute should be brought in. Judge Bell cited Rule 19 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which addresses the essential parties to a lawsuit. This opens the door to a larger legal struggle that might involve other prominent Cup Series clubs, whether they want it or not. NASCAR's revised complaint now includes more communications from important figures such as Denny Hamlin, Curtis Polk, and others involved in what NASCAR believes as a conspiracy to compel the league into providing more favorable charter provisions. According to NASCAR, these actions were intended to pull more money from the sport through the charter system, thereby accusing the teams of utilizing anti-competitive practices in retaliation to NASCAR's original antitrust accusations. The repercussions are significant. If more teams are added to the case, the lawsuit may grow significantly larger than it was originally filed. While only 23XI and Front Row were willing to proceed legally, team owner Richard Childress has already expressed his modest support, citing economic reasons that prohibited him from taking a stronger stance. It's a sign that, even outside the courtroom, team sentiment may be stronger than it appears. As of now, the case is still scheduled to go to trial in early December. However, this is not the only legal front in which the fight is heating up. Just a few weeks ago, 23XI and Front Row went beyond NASCAR and filed a federal court case in Colorado, attempting to compel Liberty Media, Formula One's parent company, to divulge crucial financial information. The plan was to use F1 stats as a baseline to demonstrate antitrust damages in their lawsuit against NASCAR. The teams anticipated that by comparing NASCAR's revenue-sharing policies to those of other major organizations such as the NFL, NHL, NBA, and IndyCar, they would be able to determine how much money was being left on the table under the present charter arrangement. The goal was to back up their assertion that NASCAR abused its monopoly power by delivering lower revenue shares to teams than they would in a competitive market. However, on Wednesday, the actions in Colorado were withdrawn. According to Fox Sports' Bob Pockrass, it is unclear whether the teams reached an agreement and acquired the information they sought, or simply decided to discontinue the effort. In any case, their equivalent requests to other leagues, which were filed in New York District Court, are still pending. The case began in October when 23XI and Front Row accused NASCAR and its CEO, Jim France, of unlawful monopolization of premier stock car racing. What's the trigger point? NASCAR's final charter offer, delivered in September 2024, within a 6-hour deadline. Teams were instructed to sign or risk having the entire charter system dismantled by 2025. That final offer includes a roughly 50% boost in revenue from NASCAR's record-breaking $1.1 billion annual TV contract, which began in 2025. But two teams, 23XI and Front Row, declined to sign. In response, they filed an antitrust action, alleging that NASCAR exploited its monopoly status to profit itself at the expense of race teams. With a provisional injunction in effect, both teams can continue racing while the matter is resolved. However, the legal battle is far from done. On May 15th, NASCAR will appear before the United States Court of Appeals for a significant hearing that could potentially overturn the 2025 charter permits for 23XI and Front Row completely. If this occurs, the stakes increase considerably. Whether it's the prospect of additional teams being hauled into court or the rising legal maneuvers in district and appellate courts, one thing is certain. This case is about far more than simply two race teams. It is about the structure, power, and future finances of NASCAR. And with the trial approaching in December, the entire sport could be racing toward a defining moment. The conclusion of this lawsuit might be a watershed moment in NASCAR history, shifting the balance of power between teams and the governing body. For decades, NASCAR has tightly controlled the sport's structure, from scheduling and rule enforcement to income distribution and charter allotment. However, the antitrust complaint filed by 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports, paired with NASCAR's vigorous counterclaims, has shown significant flaws in that structure. If the court rules in favor of the teams, NASCAR may be forced to lose some of its influence, irreversibly altering the charter model and establishing new legal precedents for how sports organizations engage with stakeholders. Adding more chartered teams to the litigation, as Judge Kenneth Bell suggested, would elevate the stakes even further. It may either unify the garage against NASCAR or further fragment it, depending on where different teams stand on the issue. For fans, it may appear to be off-track politics, but the real-world implications might be enormous. Increased team involvement over business choices, greater financial sustainability for smaller teams, and possibly a more transparent revenue-sharing arrangement. Conversely, if NASCAR wins, it may strengthen its authority to operate unilaterally, leaving dissident teams with fewer options for recourse and potentially discouraging further legal challenges. Beyond the courts, this action raises serious concerns about the charter system's long-term viability and how NASCAR will grow in an era when sports teams from all leagues are wanting a larger share of the pie. With the trial scheduled for December and rising legal tactics on both sides, the sport is at a crossroads. Whatever the outcome, the consequences from this case is expected to reverberate across the paddock for years to come, shaping how NASCAR's teams, fans, and executives interact with the future of stock car racing